Kai Chen's knuckles scraped against the training mat for the third time that morning. The impact sent a sharp pain through his already bruised ribs, and he heard the familiar sound of laughter echoing through the combat arena. Above him, a 7-foot Krell warrior named Dracus flexes 4 arms, each one capable of crushing steel. "Pathetic," Dracus rumbled, his rocky exterior gleaming under the artificial lights. "Why does the Academy even accept humans? You are too weak, too slow, too fragile." Kai pushed himself up on trembling arms. Sweat dripped from his forehead onto the black mat beneath him. Every muscle in his body screamed for rest, but he forced himself to stand. Around the arena, other students watched with expressions ranging from pity to disgust. The Valorians, cat-like beings with lightning reflexes, whispered among themselves. The Thaxians, covered in natural armor plating, simply shook their heads. Commander Scythex, the training instructor, slithered forward on his serpentine lower body. His dragon-like face showed no emotion, but his golden eyes burned with contempt. The Drakons were an ancient species, powerful beyond measure, and Scythex made no secret of his disdain for weaker races. "Chun," Scythex said, his voice a low hiss, "you have failed the combat assessment for the 5th time this month. Perhaps you should consider a different career path. Not every species is meant for greatness." Kai wiped blood from his split lip. "I'll pass the next one, sir." Scythex's laugh was cold and harsh. "No, you will not. You are human. You have no natural weapons, no enhanced strength, no armored skin. You are nothing but soft flesh and false hope." He turned to address the entire class. "Let this be a lesson. In the galaxy, the strong survive and lead. The weak serve or perish." The other students nodded in agreement. Kai felt their stares burning into his back as he limped toward the exit. Only one person followed him, Mira, a Valorian female with silver fur and bright green eyes. "You should not let him speak to you that way," Mira said softly, matching his slower pace of the corridor. "What choice do I have?" Kai muttered. Everything he said is true. Humans are weak compared to everyone else here. "Strength is not everything," Mira replied, but even she sounded uncertain. That night, Kai could not sleep. The station's artificial gravity felt too heavy on his tired body. He decided to walk to the Academy Library, a massive structure filled with data crystals and ancient texts from thousands of worlds. At this hour, it was empty and quiet. Kai wandered through the aisles, letting his fingers trail across the spines of old books. He stopped at a section marked Draken History, Restricted Access. His student credentials should not have allowed him entry, but the door slid open anyway. Kai frowned but stepped inside. The room was small and dusty, filled with crumbling manuscripts and faded scrolls. Most were written in languages he could not read, but one caught his attention. It was bound in dark leather, and when he touched it, warmth spread through his fingers. The title was written in Standard Galactic, The First Accord. Kai opened the book carefully. The pages were yellow with age, and the writing was difficult to read, but he made out fragments of the text. It spoke of an ancient time, before the Galactic Council, before the great empires. It mentioned humans and Drakons together, but the details were unclear. Many pages had been torn out. One passage stood out. The bond between human and dragon was forged in fire and sealed in blood. What the mind forgets, the blood remembers. Only a bondkeeper can awaken what sleeps. Kai read the words 3 times, trying to understand their meaning. Before he could study further, an alarm blared through the library. The book grew hot in his hands, then ice cold. Strange symbols glowed on the pages, Draken symbols he had never seen before. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Kai quickly closed the book and shoved it back onto the shelf. His heart pounded as he slipped out of the restricted section. As he hurried back to his dormitory, he did not notice the faint glow that now pulsed beneath his skin, visible only for a moment when he passed through shadow. That night, Kai dreamed of fire and wings, of a voice older than stars whispering words he almost understood. Blood remembers what minds forget. He woke with the taste of smoke on his tongue and a burning certainty that nothing would ever be the same. The dreams came every night after that. Kai would close his eyes and find himself standing on ancient Earth, but it looked nothing like the world he knew. The sky burned red with cosmic fire, and massive rocks fell from the heavens like deadly rain. Everywhere, creatures screamed and ran for shelter. In the dreams, Kai watched a small dragon, no larger than a horse, limping to the destruction. Its wing was broken, and blood dripped from deep wounds across its scales. The dragon collapsed near a cave where a group of humans huddled together in fear. They should have run from the predator. Instead, a young woman stepped forward with water and strips of cloth. Kai watched as the humans tended to the dragon's wounds through the night. They shared their meager food, wrapped the broken wing, and sang soft songs to calm the frightened creature. When morning came, the dragon looked at them with understanding in its ancient eyes. A bond formed that day, one that would echo through millions of years. Kai woke gasping, his sheets soaked with sweat. The visions felt more real than memories. He could still feel the heat of that dying world, could still hear the dragon's grateful rumble in his chest. "You look terrible," Mira said when she found him in the cafeteria that morning. "Are you sick?" "Just dreams," Kai muttered, pushing food around his plate without eating. His hands trembled slightly, and there was a strange warmth in his chest that would not fade. Dreams about what? Before Kai could answer, Commander Scythex's voice boomed through the station's communication system. "All students report to the main assembly hall immediately. This is not a drill." The hall filled quickly with hundreds of students from dozens of species. Kai and Mira found seats near the back. On the central platform stood not just Scythex, but the Academy's headmaster and several members of the Galactic Council. Their faces looked grim. "Students," the headmaster began, his voice heavy, "we face a grave situation. A Draken warlord named Typhoros has declared war on what he calls a lesser species. He commands a fleet of warships and an army of followers who believe that only the strong deserve to exist in this galaxy." Murmurs of fear rippled through the crowd. The Drakens were the most powerful species known. No one could stand against them in direct combat. "Typhoros has given us 1 week to surrender control of all weaker species to Draken rule," the headmaster continued. "If we refuse, he will attack. The council is considering our options, but I must be honest, we have very few." Kai felt something stir inside him, like a sleeping giant turning in its rest. The warmth in his chest grew stronger, almost painful. His vision blurred, and for a moment he saw not the assembly hall but a vast starfield where something enormous was moving, drawn by an invisible call. "Chun!" Scythex's sharp voice snapped him back to reality. "Are you paying attention, or is this too complex for your simple human mind?" Several students laughed. Kai opened his mouth to respond, but the words that came out were not his own. They were older, deeper, spoken in a language he did not know he could speak. The laughter died instantly. Every Draken in the room, including Scythex, stumbled backward as if struck. Their eyes went wide with something Kai had never seen before, recognition and fear. What did you just say?" Scythex whispered, his voice shaking. "I don't know," Kai said honestly. "I didn't mean to." The station shuddered violently. Alarms blared as something massive appeared on the sensors. Through the great windows of the assembly hall, Kai watched as a shape emerged from hyperspace. It was a dragon unlike any modern Draken. This creature was ancient, covered in scars from countless battles. Easily 3 times the size of the largest ship in dock. Its scales were deep bronze, and its eyes glowed like dying stars. The dragon did not attack. It simply moved toward the station with slow, deliberate grace. When it opened its mouth, a single word echoed through every speaker, every communication device, every mind on the station. The word was in the same ancient language Kai had just spoken, "Bond Keeper." Then the great dragon's eyes closed, and its body went rigid. It entered a form of stasis, floating in space like a monument to a forgotten age. But Kai could feel it, could feel the consciousness inside waiting, watching, remembering. Commander Scythex turned to stare at Kai with new eyes. "What are you?" he whispered. Kai looked at his own hands, seeing them glow faintly in the dim light. "I don't know, but I think I need to find out." The station fell into chaos after the ancient dragon's arrival. Scientists scanned the creature constantly, trying to understand what it was and why it had come. Military ships surrounded it, weapons ready but useless against something so massive. And everywhere, people whisper about the human boy who had spoken words that made Drakons tremble. Kai found himself confined his quarters under what the Academy called protective observation. Guards stood outside his door at all times. He was not allowed visitors, not allowed to leave, not allowed to do anything but wait. But the dreams grew stronger. Each night, the ancient dragon's mind reached out to his. In these dreams, Kai learned the truth. He saw the dawn of civilization, when humans were primitive and dragons were barely more than beasts. He witnessed a great catastrophe, a cosmic storm that nearly destroyed all life on Earth. He watched as humans and dragons learned to trust each other, to communicate, to bond. The connection was not magic. It was something deeper, something written into the genetic code of both species. Humans possess a rare empathy, an ability to understand and connect with other minds in ways no technology could replicate. Dragons had needed that connection to evolve, to become more than simple predators. Together, they had built something beautiful. But time had buried the truth. Dragons evolved into drakons and forgot their humble origins. Humans spread to the stars and lost the genetic markers that made bonding possible. Only 1 in 10 billion humans still carried the ancient gift. Kai was one of them. On the 5th night, Kai heard a soft knock at his door. He opened it to find Mira standing there, holding a small device that jammed the security cameras. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "I have been researching your situation. I think I know how to wake the Ancient One, but we need artifacts from the vault." "The vault is forbidden," Kai said. "If we get caught, then we get caught trying to save the galaxy, instead of hiding in fear," Mira interrupted. "Typhoros and his fleet will arrive in 3 days. The Council has no plan, no defense, nothing. That dragon out there is our only hope, and you are the only one who can wake it." Kai knew she was right. He grabbed his jacket and followed her into the darkened corridors. They moved through the station like ghosts, avoiding patrols and cameras. Myra's Valorian reflexes and knowledge of security systems got them past most obstacles. When they reached the vault, she produced a stolen access card. Inside, the vault was cold and silent. Rows of ancient artifacts lined the walls, relics from 100 civilizations. Mira led him to a section marked with Draken symbols. There, in a case of reinforced crystal, lay a collar made of dark metal covered in the same glowing symbols Kai had seen in the Forbidden Book. The collar of First Union, Mira read from a display, used in ancient bonding ceremonies between humans and dragons. "This is what you need." Kai reached the case, but alarms erupted before he could touch it. Red lights flooded the vault, and the door slammed shut behind them. Through the reinforced glass, Kai saw Commander Scythex approaching with a squad of armed guards. "Foolish children," Scythex hissed as the guards forced him into restraints. "You have committed theft of sacred artifacts and violated station security. The punishment is expulsion and imprisonment." They were dragged to the council chambers, where the Academy's leaders sat in judgment. The headmaster looked at Kai with disappointment. "Mr. Chun, you have shown promise despite your physical limitations. Why would you throw away your future for this madness?" Kai's hands were bound, but his voice was steady. "Because that dragon out there came in response to my call. Because the ancient texts speak of a bond between humans and drakons that could change everything. Because while you sit here debating rules and regulations, Typhoros is coming to enslave or destroy us all." "The boy speaks truth." A voice called from the back of the chamber. An elderly Draken scholar stepped forward, his scales pale with age. "I have spent my life studying the forbidden histories. The ancient bond was real. If this human carries a genetic marker, he may be our only chance." Scythex slammed his tail against the floor. "You would trust our survival to a weak human based on legends and dreams?" "I would trust survival to anyone who offers hope," the scholar replied. The council members whispered among themselves. Finally, the headmaster spoke. "Kai-Chun, we will give you one chance. If you can wake the ancient dragon and prove the bond is real, humanity will be recognized as having worth beyond measure. If you fail, your species will be deemed unworthy of council protection when Typhoros arrives. Do you accept these terms?" Kai felt the weight of billions of lives settling on his shoulders. He thought of his family on Earth, of all humans across the galaxy who would suffer if he failed. But he also felt the ancient dragon's presence in his mind, patient and waiting. "I accept," Kai said. They brought Kai to the observation deck in a small shuttle, accompanied by the elderly Draken scholar, Mira, and a dozen council witnesses. Through the viewport, the ancient dragon floated motionless in the void of space, its bronze scales reflecting starlight like ancient armor. Kai wore the collar of First Union around his neck. The metal was cold against his skin, but it hummed with dormant power. "The rite of remembrance has not been performed in millions of years," the scholar explained, his voice trembling with age and excitement. "You must enter the dragon's mind completely. Face his memories, his pain, his loneliness. If your mind breaks under the weight of so much time, you will die. If the dragon rejects you, you will die. If the bond fails to form, you will die." "You are not making this sound very encouraging," Kai muttered, trying to calm his racing heart. "I am being honest," the scholar replied. "But I believe you can succeed. The dragon came because it sensed you. That means something." Kai closed his eyes and reached out with his mind, the way he had learned in his dreams. At first, there was nothing but darkness and cold. Then, like diving into an ocean, he plunged into the dragon's consciousness. The first trial hit him immediately. He stood in a wasteland of memory, surrounded by the bodies of dragons who had died alone and forgotten. The Ancient One's voice echoed through the emptiness. "This is what we became. Immortal, powerful, and utterly alone. Why should I wake to this reality again?" Kai felt the crushing weight of millennia of isolation. The dragon had watched civilizations rise and fall, had seen friends die and enemies turn to dust, had witnessed a very bond that gave its life meaning fade into myth. The loneliness was so vast it could swallow stars. "Because you are not alone," Kai said, his voice small against the immensity. "I am here, and I remember, even if no one else does." The wasteland shifted. Now Kai stood before a mirror that showed not his reflection but his deepest fears. He saw himself failing, saw Earth burning under Typhoros's attack, saw every human who would suffer because of his weakness. The dragon's voice came again. "You are afraid. You doubt yourself. Why should I trust one who does not trust himself?" Kai stared at the horrible visions and forced himself to speak the truth. "I am afraid. I do doubt myself. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward despite it. And I would rather die trying to save others than live knowing I did nothing." The mirror shattered. The second trial began. Kai found himself in a place of golden light, beautiful and warm. Here were his memories of Earth, his mother's smile, his father's laugh, the smell of rain on summer evenings, the taste of his grandmother's cooking, the feeling of grass under his bare feet. Everything he loved, everything that made him who he was. "To forge a bond, you must give something irreplaceable," the dragon said. "These memories anchor you to your world. Without them, you will be adrift. But they are what I need to remember why humanity mattered, why the bond was worth forming. Will you sacrifice them?" Kai felt tears streaming down his face. To lose these memories would be to lose part of himself. But he thought of all the humans who would make new memories if he succeeded, all the children who would grow up free if he could stop Typhoros. "Take them," Kai whispered. "Take them, and remember for both of us." The golden light flowed out of him like water, and he felt pieces of himself disappearing. But as his memories faded, they transformed into something new, shared experiences that belonged to both him and the dragon. The sacrifice was not destruction, but transformation. The third trial came without warning. Kai's heart began to slow, beating in rhythm with something vast and ancient. The dragon's heartbeat was slow, one beat every 10 seconds, the pulse of a creature designed for immortality. Kai's human heart could not maintain such a rhythm. His vision darkened. His lungs burned for air. "Synchronize or die," the dragon said simply. Kai stopped fighting. He let go of his fear, his doubt, his desperate need to control everything. He simply accepted what was happening. And in that acceptance, something miraculous occurred. His heartbeat did not slow to match the dragon's. Instead, the dragon's heartbeat quickened to meet his. They found a rhythm between them, neither fully human nor fully dragon, but something new. Light exploded across the void. The collar of First Union blazed like a newborn star. In the shuttle, Kai's body convulsed once, then went still. His eyes snapped open, glowing with golden fire. Outside, the ancient dragon named Valdros opened its eyes and roared. The sound shook the station and echoed across the galaxy, a declaration that the bond had returned. Kai stood on the observation deck, but he was not alone anymore. He could feel Valdros in his mind, a presence vast and ancient yet somehow comforting. Through the dragon's eyes, he could see the entire star system. Through Kai's eyes, Valdros remembered what it meant to care about small, fragile lives. "They are coming," Valdros said, his voice rumbling through both their minds. "Typhoros brings 200 warships. He means to make an example of this place." The council members in the room looked terrified. Commander Scythex, who had mocked Kai for weeks, now stood with his head bowed. Something had changed in him when the bond formed. Ancient memories stirred in his blood, memories a species had buried for millions of years. "We cannot fight 200 ships," the headmaster said quietly. "Even with Valdros, the odds are impossible." "We do not need to fight," Kai replied, and his voice carried harmonics that were not entirely human. "We need to help them remember." Before anyone could question him, space around the station rippled. Typhoros' fleet emerged from hyperspace, like a swarm of metal predators. Each ship bristled with weapons capable of destroying planets. At the center of the formation flew Typhoros himself, a massive modern draken with scales like black steel and eyes that burned with arrogance. Insignificant creatures, Typhoros' voice boomed through every communication channel. "You have one final chance to surrender. Bow before dragon supremacy, or be erased from existence." Kai walked to the shuttle bay, Mira and the elderly scholar following close behind. "What are you doing?" Mira asked. "You cannot go out there alone." "I am not alone," Kai said simply. He climbed into a small emergency suit designed for spacewalks and stepped into the airlock. "Valdros, are you ready?" "I was born ready, little bondkeeper," the ancient dragon replied with what might have been amusement. Kai launched into space. The emergency suit was not designed for combat, had no weapons, no shields, nothing but basic life support. He floated there in the void between the station and Typhoros' fleet, one fragile human facing an armada. Typhoros laughed, the sound like grinding metal. "What is this? The mighty academy sends a child in a cheap suit to face me? This is the great bondkeeper I heard about." He turned to his fleet. "Destroy him in the station. Leave nothing alive." But Kai did not move. He simply opened his mouth and spoke. The words came from deep within him, from the bond itself, from genetic memories written in blood and fire. He spoke in the first language, the tongue that dragons used before they became drakons, before they forgot what it meant to need others. The words were not a spell or a command. They were a story. They were the memory of a broken dragon saved by human hands, of food shared during famine, of songs sung in the darkness, a bond formed when both species needed each other to survive. And because Kai was linked to Valdros, and Valdros carried the genetic memory of the First Age, the story did not just reach Typhoros. It reached every draken in the fleet. One by one, the warship stopped. Draken pilots gripped their controls as memories flooded through them. Not their own memories, but the memories of their ancestors. They felt the touch of gentle human hands on wounds, heard lullabies sung to frighten hatchlings, remembered a time when dragons were not supreme, but were simply survivors, saved by beings weaker than themselves. Typhoros roared in fury and confusion. "What is this? What trick do you play?" "No trick," Valdros said, his voice reaching every draken mind. "Only truth, only memory. We were not always mighty, brother. Once, we were young and afraid. Once, we needed help to survive. These humans gave us that help and asked nothing in return. The bond was not servitude. It was friendship." A female draken in Typhoros' fleet broke formation. She flew toward Kai, her weapons powered down. "I remember," she whispered. "My ancestor was dying of starvation. A human child gave him her only food." Tears streamed from her ancient eyes. "We forgot. How could we forget? More ships broke away, their pilots overwhelmed by the weight of ancestral memory. They remembered acts of kindness across millennia, remembered partnerships that benefited both species, remembered that strength meant nothing without compassion. Typhoros tried to rally his forces, but even his own flagship crew was affected. His second-in-command, a scarred veteran of 1,000 battles, looked at him with new understanding. "Commander, we were wrong. Our ancestors would be ashamed of what we have become." Typhoros flew toward Kai, fury in every movement. But as he drew closer, the memories hit him hardest of all. He saw his own ancestor, a young dragon trapped under fallen rocks during a great catastrophe, certain to die. He saw a young human woman dig through the rubble with bleeding hands until she freed him. He felt what his ancestor felt: gratitude, wonder, and a bond that transcended species. The warlord's rage crumbled. He landed on the station's hull and bowed his massive head before Kai, this fragile human boy in his cheap suit. "Forgive us, Bondkeeper," Typhoros said, his voice breaking. "We became so powerful that we forgot what made us worthy of that power." Across the galaxy, every Draken paused in their tasks as the genetic memory spread like ripples in a pond. They felt the call of the ancient bond, the truth their species had buried under millions of years of pride. On the observation deck, Commander Scythex knelt and wept. "Forgive us," he whispered, echoing Typhoros. "Forgive us for forgetting." Kai floated in space, exhausted but alive, surrounded by 200 warships whose weapons would never fire. Through his bond with Valdros, he felt something beautiful, the awakening of connections that had slept for ages, the return of a partnership between species that had once changed the galaxy. "The bond is restored," Valdros announced to all who could hear. "Not as master and servant, but as equals. Let the weak and the strong remember what the ancient ones knew, that together we are greater than we ever could be alone." Kai smiled as Myra's voice crackled through his suit's communicator. "You did it. You actually did it." "No," Kai replied, looking at the fleet of former enemies who now bowed in respect. "We did it, all of us together." And in that moment, humanity, the weakest species in the galaxy, became the bridge that would unite the stars.